There comes a moment in your life when something inside you whispers, this isn't right. You can't explain it. You can't point to a rule book. But your gut knows. You feel it in your chest, in your throat, in your skin. It's that subtle tightening, that uneasy pause, that quiet voice that says, you don't deserve this. And yet, you stay silent. You rationalize. You tolerate. Why? Because most people have been conditioned to believe that enduring pain is strength. That being the bigger person means swallowing mistreatment. That love means bending until you break. But let me ask you something. How many times have you let something slide, only to realize later that it was the very thing that broke you? How many times did you see the red flag waving and walk straight into the fire anyway? Not because you were weak, but because you didn't know what behavior should never be tolerated. This message is not about being dramatic. It's not about cutting everyone off or building walls so high that no one can reach you. It's about recognizing the unbreakable boundaries that guard your peace, your self-worth, and your future. It's about giving yourself permission to stop excusing the inexcusable. You want peace, then you must protect it like your life depends on it. Because it does. You want respect, then stop making room for anything less. This isn't just another motivational talk. This is a wake-up call. There are 6 behaviors, subtle, corrosive, and dangerous, that must be named, called out, and never tolerated again. Not in your relationships, not in your workplace, not in your family, and definitely not within yourself. If you're tired of feeling drained, doubting yourself, second-guessing your worth, then you're exactly where you need to be. Because what you're about to hear won't just make you think, it will make you change. Let's get into it. Disrespect never starts as a slap across the face. It rarely shouts, it whispers. It slides into your life disguised as a joke, hidden behind sarcasm, masked as just being honest. It comes in moments when someone cuts you off mid-sentence, when your opinion is brushed aside like dust, or when your boundaries are laughed at like they're a punchline. It creeps in slowly, so slowly that you almost miss it. And that's how it wins. That's how it grows. Because the very first time you let it slide, you teach them something that their behavior is acceptable. Disrespect is a gateway. It's the opening crack in a dam that, if left unchecked, will eventually break everything inside you. It doesn't just hurt your feelings, it erodes your sense of self. When someone repeatedly treats you as if you don't matter and you allow it, a dangerous message embeds itself in your mind. Maybe I really don't. You begin to question yourself. Maybe you were too sensitive. Maybe you shouldn't have spoken up. Maybe they're just having a bad day. So you let it go again and again. But here's the truth that will set you free. Silence is not strength. Endurance is not nobility. The ability to absorb mistreatment is not a superpower. We live in a world that often confuses politeness with peace. But let me tell you, peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of respect. And any peace that requires you to shrink, silence yourself, or tolerate emotional bruising is a lie. It's a performance. And every time you allow disrespect to live in your life, you reinforce that performance. You become an actor in someone else's play instead of the author of your own script. People learn how to treat you based on what you tolerate. That's not cliche, it's fact. If someone can humiliate you once without consequence, they'll do it again. And not always out of cruelty, sometimes out of habit. Human beings test limits. It's nature. And if your boundaries are unclear, flexible, or non-existent, you become a playground for other people's disregard. You might think, well, it's not that bad. But ask yourself, would you want your daughter, your little sister, your best friend, or even your younger self to accept what you're putting up with right now? Would you tell them to stay quiet, to brush it off, to keep the peace at the cost of their own soul? Disrespect wears many faces. It can be loud and aggressive, yes, but it can also be subtle and passive. It can look like someone forgetting your accomplishments while highlighting their own. It can look like being the butt of the joke in front of others. It can sound like you're too emotional, you're overreacting, or the dreaded, relax, I didn't mean it like that. It's in the excuses, the dismissals, the moments where you feel small, unheard, or unimportant, and then feel guilty for even noticing it. Let me be Very clear about this. You are not too much for expecting basic human decency. You are not too sensitive for having boundaries. You are not hard to love because you refuse to accept being treated like an afterthought. The people who tell you that you expect too much are often the ones who give far too little. So what do you do when you're disrespected? You acknowledge it. You call it out. You set a line so sharp, so clear, and so unapologetic that it cannot be crossed without consequence. And no, that doesn't mean yelling or becoming someone you're not. It means standing in your truth calmly and firmly without flinching. It means saying, "That's not okay with me." It means walking away when they don't listen. It means understanding that you lose absolutely nothing by demanding respect, except the people who are never going to give it to you anyway. People often fear that by confronting disrespect, they'll end up alone. But what's lonelier than sitting in a room full of people who make you feel invisible? What's more isolating than constantly questioning your worth because of how someone else treats you? When you stop tolerating disrespect, you don't lose connection, you gain clarity. You begin to see who really values you, who respects your presence, and who only stayed because they could cross your lines without being called out. Respect is not a luxury. It's not something you earn by being nice enough, quiet enough, or agreeable enough. It is a non-negotiable, and the moment you decide to treat it that way, everything changes. Your relationships elevate. Your energy returns. Your confidence rebuilds. You stop trying to prove your worth and start walking like you know it. The truth is, when you stop tolerating disrespect, your entire life upgrades. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't have to keep the peace when it costs your dignity. You are allowed, no required, to demand more. And anyone who truly sees you, loves you, and respects you will never be threatened by that. Because when you refuse to tolerate disrespect, you're not just standing up for yourself, you're standing up for every version of you that stayed quiet, every younger you that didn't know better, every future you that deserves better. Let this be the last season in your life where disrespect goes unchecked. You've got better things to build than walls around your heart. Start by building a standard. One that says, if you can't treat me with respect, you can't sit at my table. Period. Manipulation is never loud. It doesn't show up with flashing red lights or warning signs. It's subtle. It disguises itself as care, concern, or even love. It comes with a smile on its face and poison in its hands. And by the time you realize what's happening, you're already second-guessing yourself, walking on eggshells, and wondering, am I the problem? That's how manipulation works. It makes you question your reality. If you have to constantly decode what someone really means, if you walk away from conversations feeling confused instead of clear, if you're always the one apologizing, even when you're not sure what you did wrong, then you're not in a relationship. You're in a game that only the manipulator wins. Manipulation isn't always about grand deception or lies. Sometimes it's just someone twisting your emotions to get what they want. It's the guilt trips, the silent treatment, the passive-aggressive comments, the fake apologies laced with blame. I'm sorry you felt that way. It's the rewriting of history where you remember things one way, but somehow you're the one who's wrong. It's the gaslighting that leaves you wondering if you're too sensitive, too emotional, or just plain crazy. But you're not crazy, you're being controlled. And control doesn't always look like chains. It looks like confusion. It sounds like mixed messages. It feels like losing yourself in someone else's narrative. The dangerous thing about manipulation is that it convinces you to betray yourself. You stop trusting your gut. You over-explain your choices. You suppress your truth because you're afraid of their reaction. That's not love. That's not friendship. That's not leadership. That's control dressed up as connection. People who manipulate others don't want partnership. They want power. They thrive in the gray areas. They want you emotionally entangled so they can pull your strings without you even realizing it. They create chaos so they can step in and save you from it. They create guilt so you never feel strong enough to leave. And if you ever try to confront it, they flip the script. Suddenly, you're the attacker, you're the ungrateful one, you're the bad guy. This is what makes manipulation so insidious. It doesn't just control your actions, it invades your identity. You begin to believe the story they've written about you. You begin to play small, stay quiet, avoid conflict, and tolerate things that violate your soul. You become more invested in preserving the peace than protecting your peace. And the cost of that is everything. Your confidence, your clarity, your voice. But here's the truth you need to remember. Love should never feel like a trap. Real connection does not require you to shrink. If someone truly values you, they don't need to manipulate you to keep you around. They choose honesty over control. They choose clarity over confusion. They choose your well-being over their ego. If someone always makes you feel guilty when you say no, that's not love, it's manipulation. If someone dismisses your feelings and then punishes you for having them, that's not emotional maturity, it's manipulation. If someone makes you feel like you have to earn their kindness or affection, that's not high standards, it's manipulation. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because they've gotten good at playing games with your emotions. The most powerful move you can make is to stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Stop giving second chances to people who used the first to rewrite your truth. Stop negotiating with anyone who uses your kindness as leverage. You don't need to argue with manipulators. You don't need to fight their tactics with louder ones. What you need is silence, space, and boundaries that don't bend under pressure. You need to trust that when someone makes you feel small, confused, or emotionally exhausted, it's not your job to fix them, it's your job to free yourself. And freedom starts the moment you stop ignoring the signs. The moment you stop explaining away behavior that makes you feel unsafe. The moment you realize that love should feel like truth, not tension. Manipulation loses power the second you name it, the second you recognize it for what it is. The fog begins to lift. You begin to see the patterns, the tactics, the triggers. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. That's when everything changes. You reclaim your voice. You reclaim your choices. You reclaim the parts of yourself that were buried under someone else's control. And you learn to trust that your feelings are not flaws. They're signals. Your discomfort is not a weakness. It's wisdom. Your instincts aren't wrong. They're the part of you that still knows the truth, even when your mind has been trained to forget it. Manipulation thrives in silence. It thrives when you doubt yourself. It thrives when you stay instead of walking away. But the moment you choose truth over loyalty to dysfunction, you break its grip. No more guessing, no more games, no more giving your power away to people who only show up to twisted. If you have to question whether someone respects you, they probably don't. If you have to ask whether it's manipulation, it probably is. And if you have to convince yourself to stay, you probably already know it's time to go. You don't owe anyone your confusion. You owe yourself clarity. And once you choose it, manipulation doesn't stand a chance. Lying isn't just about words. It's about trust. And trust isn't something you can build halfway. It's either whole or it's broken. One lie, even a small one, chips at the foundation of any relationship. And when that foundation cracks, everything else, communication, intimacy, respect, starts to fall apart. We tell ourselves lies aren't a big deal, that everyone does it, that sometimes people just say what they think we want to hear. But the truth is, lying is a choice. A lie is a conscious decision to withhold the truth from someone who deserves it. It's a decision to protect your own comfort instead of someone else's trust. And when you tolerate it, you're telling the liar that their comfort matters more than your clarity. It starts subtly. Someone omits the truth. They twist the story just enough to make themselves look better. They forget to tell you something important, or they deny something that you can feel in your gut is real. And if you call it out, you get gaslit. Why are you making a big deal out of nothing? I didn't lie, I just didn't want to hurt you. But here's what they're really saying. I didn't want to deal with the consequences of being honest. Lies aren't just about the content. They're about control. When someone lies to you, they take away your right to make informed decisions. They rob you of the opportunity to respond to reality. Instead, they give you a version of events that serves their narrative. And the worst part, when the lie eventually comes to light, and it always does, it doesn't just hurt because they lied. It hurts because now you question everything else they ever told you. Every compliment, every promise, every apology, you start to wonder, was any of it real? The danger of tolerating lying is that it creates a culture of mistrust in your life. When someone gets away with it once, they'll do it again and again until lying becomes normal, until truth becomes the exception instead of the rule, until you start lying to yourself just to survive the relationship. You'll say things like, it's not that serious, or they didn't mean to, or they're working on it. But deep down, something shifts inside of you. A part of you goes quiet. A part of you stops trusting not just them, but yourself. You stop trusting your instincts. You second guess your reactions. You shrink around their dishonesty just to avoid conflict. But here's what you need to remember. Trust is the currency of every meaningful connection. Whether it's love, friendship, or business, if there's no trust, there's nothing to build on. You can't grow with someone who lies. You can't heal with someone who hides. You can't thrive with someone who manipulates reality. And let's be honest, some people are professional liars. They've spent their entire lives perfecting the art of deception. They lie not because they have to, but because it gives them control, because it keeps you off balance, because it keeps them in the power seat. And the more you allow it, the more they assume you'll always accept it. You teach people how to treat you based on what you accept. When you let a lie slide, you're telling the liar, I'd rather keep the peace than hold you accountable. But peace built on dishonesty is just quiet chaos. It's the kind of silence that keeps you up at night, the kind of smile that hides a storm, the kind of relationship that looks good on the outside but is rotting from the inside. You deserve truth, not half-truths, not delayed truths, not selective truths, full, raw, honest truth, even when it's hard, even when it's messy, because the right people won't lie to you. The right people won't make you question your reality. The right people will give you the respect of honesty, even if it costs them. When you start demanding truth, you're not being harsh. You're being clear. You're saying, I won't build my life on fiction. You're saying, if you can't be honest with me, you can't be close to me. And that's not cruelty. That's self-respect. Now let's talk about what happens when you confront a liar. Expect resistance. Expect deflection. Expect victimhood. Because nothing threatens a liar more than someone who refuses to play along. When you shine a light on the lie, you expose the part of them they're most afraid to face. And that will either make them defensive or honest. But either way, you'll know where you stand. You can't fix someone who's committed to lying. You can't love someone enough to make them truthful. And it's not your job to rehabilitate someone who sees honesty as a burden. Your only job is to honor your boundaries, protect your peace, and surround yourself with people who don't lie to get what they want. Because the truth is, you can recover from pain, from conflict, from mistakes. But recovering from betrayal, that takes a different kind of healing. That kind of pain changes how you see people, how you see yourself, how you love, how you trust. So the best defense is not forgiveness, it's prevention. Don't let liars in just because they're charming. Don't ignore your gut just because you want it to be wrong. Trust is sacred, it's fragile. Once broken, it doesn't just go back to the way it was, it becomes something else. And most of the time, it never feels the same again. So, let this be the season where you stop tolerating lies, even the small ones. Where you stop making space for people who think dishonesty is a strategy. Where you stop betraying yourself just to keep someone close. Because you're not asking for too much, you're just asking for something real. And real is the only thing worth holding on to. Chronic negativity is one of the most dangerous things you can tolerate. Not because it screams, but because it slowly seeps into every part of your life without you even realizing it. It doesn't always come from people you dislike. Sometimes it comes from the people closest to you. The ones who claim to love you, support you, want the best for you, and yet every time you share an idea, a dream, or a goal, they find a way to dim your light. They say things like, are you sure that's realistic? Don't get your hopes up. People like us don't get things like that. And the worst one of all, I'm just being honest. No, that's not honesty. That's fear, dressed up as advice. That's someone projecting their limitations onto your potential. That's someone who has accepted a small life, trying to convince you to shrink into one too. And if you don't learn how to recognize it, you'll start believing them. Negativity isn't always a loud complaint or open criticism. Sometimes it hides behind concern. It shows up in that friend who's always talking about what could go wrong. The coworker who complains about everything but never tries to change anything. The family member who's always focusing on who failed, who's struggling, or who got it worse. They wrap their pessimism in a smile, in a hug, in "I just want what's best for you." But make no mistake, this is emotional poison. And if you don't protect yourself from it, it will infect your mind, your motivation, and your momentum. You might start doubting yourself, holding back, playing small. You might begin to match their energy, not even realizing that you've become more critical, more hesitant, more drained, because negativity is contagious. It's not just about hearing complaints. It's about the energy those complaints carry. It's heavy. It's exhausting. It's soul depleting. Some people live in negativity. Like it's oxygen. They don't know how to function without something to criticize. Misery becomes their identity. They bond through gossip. They connect through complaints. And they will try to pull you into that world because it validates their own stagnation. If they can keep you low, they never have to rise. If they can make you doubt yourself, they never have to deal with the shame of not trying. But here's the truth. Just because someone else has chosen to live in fear, bitterness, or resentment doesn't mean you have to visit, let alone stay. You do not owe anyone your optimism. You do not have to sit in someone else's storm just because they invited you in. And you are not unkind for walking away from energy that drains you. There's a difference between someone going through a hard time and someone who lives in a mindset of hardship. We all have bad days. We all go through valleys. But people who are emotionally healthy don't try to anchor others in their darkness. They ask for help. They seek solutions. They allow you to support them without making you feel suffocated. Chronic negativity, on the other hand, is different. It's constant. It's relentless. It's an outlook that infects every conversation, every perspective, every possibility. And it has one goal: to convince you that the sky is always falling, that life is out to get you, that trying is a waste of time, that joy is fake, that hope is foolish. The most dangerous thing about this kind of energy is how normal it can start to feel. You think, maybe I am being naive. Maybe the world really is that bad. Maybe I should just play it safe. And before you know it, you're stuck in the same loop, complaining, doubting, settling, shrinking. Let's get something straight. You don't have to tolerate energy that feels heavy, dark, or discouraging. Just because it's wrapped in familiarity, you don't have to feel guilty for choosing peace, for choosing growth, for choosing joy, and you certainly don't have to sacrifice your mental clarity to keep someone else emotionally comfortable. People will call you selfish when you protect your energy. Let them. They don't live with your mind. They don't wake up with your thoughts. They don't carry your dreams, but you do. And if you want to do anything meaningful with your life, you have to guard your spirit from those who constantly predict rain, even when the sun is shining. Negativity will tell you that you're being unrealistic. Positivity will remind you that what hasn't been done is still possible. Negativity will remind you of every failure. Positivity will teach you what to learn from it. Negativity is cheap. It costs nothing to criticize. It takes real courage to believe, to try again, to speak life over a broken situation. This isn't about toxic positivity. It's not about ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. It's about refusing to drown in problems without reaching for a solution. It's about believing that better is possible, even if it's hard. It's about understanding that your energy is your responsibility. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others is to say, I'm not staying here. I refuse to live in this emotional quicksand. You weren't born to absorb darkness. You were born to carry light. You were born to challenge the pattern, not to become it. So if you're surrounded by people who always expect the worst, who see limits instead of opportunities, who find a reason to complain no matter what, pay attention, because their worldview will become yours if you let it. And you're not here to live in fear. You're here to rise, to dream, to create, to push through, to believe in what's possible, especially when others don't. Walk away from the poison, even when it's smiling. You don't need that kind of love. You need truth, hope, challenge, and fire. Protect your space like your future depends on it. Because it does. Control and possessiveness are often mistaken for love, but make no mistake, they are not love. They are fear dressed up as affection. They are insecurity disguised as protection. And if you tolerate them long enough, you'll find yourself locked in a relationship that looks like care but feels like suffocation. It starts innocently enough. A partner asks who you are with. They want to know where you're going. They say things like, "I just worry about you," or "I can't help it," "I love you too much." And at first it feels good. It feels flattering to be wanted so much, to be someone's everything. Well, what starts as attention soon turns into interrogation. What began as concern morphs into surveillance. Now you feel like you have to explain everything you do. Now your time, your space, your voice all come with conditions. You begin to hesitate before sharing things, your plans, your goals, your friendships, because you know it's going to start a fight, trigger jealousy, or launch another guilt trip. That's not love. That's control. Real love doesn't try to own you. Real love doesn't clip your wings. It doesn't put you in a cage and call it safety. It doesn't make you choose between your freedom and their comfort. When someone loves you from a place of wholeness, they want you to fly, not shrink. They support your independence, not threaten it. They celebrate your growth, not fear it. But possessive people see love as territory. To them, having you means controlling you. And if you're not careful, you'll end up trading your freedom for false security. You'll be in a relationship where your identity slowly erodes because you're constantly bending to avoid conflict. You'll tell yourself, "This is what love looks like, it's just intense." But intensity without trust is not passion, it's control. Possessiveness thrives on fear. Fear of loss, fear of abandonment, fear of being replaced. And instead of dealing with that fear, controlling people try to control you, your time, your choices, your relationships, your emotions. And the longer you stay, the more normal it begins to feel. You begin to mistake control for protection, jealousy for passion, and boundaries for betrayal. Let's be clear, asking for space isn't disrespect. Wanting time to yourself isn't rejection. Having friendships outside your relationship isn't a threat, but controlling people twist those things. They make you feel guilty for having a life outside of them. They question your loyalty. They use your love for them against you. If you really loved me, you wouldn't need anyone else. If you cared about us, you wouldn't want to go out so much. You're mine. No, you are not anyone's possession. You are not here to be caged, controlled, or consumed. You are here to live fully, to love freely, to grow endlessly. And the right person won't try to own you. They'll walk with you. The right person won't be threatened by your freedom. They'll be inspired by it. So control is not a compliment. It is not security. It is not love. And the moment you start feeling like you're being watched, managed, or manipulated instead of cherished, it's time to wake up, because what you tolerate becomes what you teach. And if you allow someone to control your every move, you teach them that your autonomy is up for negotiation. Love should never come with a leash. And this doesn't just apply to romantic relationships. Control can come from family, friends, even mentors. Anyone who demands that you shrink yourself to maintain their comfort is not respecting you. They are regulating you, and you were not created to be regulated. You were created to live in alignment with your truth, your calling, your voice. When someone constantly questions your decisions, undermines your confidence, or makes you feel like you need their permission to be yourself, that's not mentorship, that's manipulation. Control can be subtle. It's in the way they phrase things, the tone, the looks, the emotional withdrawal. It's in the way you begin to second-guess your words before you even say them. You hesitate before dressing a certain way. You cancel plans without being asked because you know how they'll react. You're not free. You're just trained. But you are not a puppet. You are not an emotional pet. You are a full, whole, brilliant human being with a right to live without fear of punishment. When you let go of controlling relationships, you may lose people, but you gain yourself, and that's a trade you will never regret. The people who truly care about you won't need to control you. They won't be scared of your independence, your strength, or your success. They'll be drawn to it. They'll cheer for it. They'll protect it. So ask yourself honestly, are you in a relationship or are you in a cage? Do you feel loved or do you feel owned? Do you have freedom or just permission? You don't have to stay small to be loved. You don't have to dim your light so someone else feels secure. You don't have to sacrifice yourself for the illusion of connection. Walk away from anything that calls your autonomy a threat. Walk away from any love that feels like control. Walk toward the kind of connection that lets you breathe deeply, speak boldly, and live freely. Because love, in its truest form, liberates, not traps, not suffocates, not commands, and you deserve nothing less. If you've made it this far, it means something inside of you already knows that you've tolerated too much, stayed too quiet, given too many chances to people who didn't deserve your peace. You've swallowed disrespect, explained away manipulation, overlooked lies, absorbed negativity, and called control love. But not anymore. This is your line in the sand. Because the truth is, you teach the world how to treat you by what you accept, and what you refuse to walk away from becomes your prison. You are not weak for wanting more. You are not heartless for choosing yourself. You are not dramatic for demanding respect. You are done pretending that survival is the same as peace. Let today be the day you rise, the day you stop tolerating what breaks your spirit, the day you stop making excuses for behavior that confuses your soul. You don't need permission to protect your boundaries. You don't need to explain why something doesn't sit right with your spirit. If it costs you your peace, your worth, or your identity, it's too expensive. You are allowed to raise your standards. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to rebuild your life around truth, respect, trust, and freedom. No more shrinking to fit into broken spaces. No more apologizing for asking for what you need. No more tolerating behavior that leaves you questioning your own value. You were not made to live on your knees. You were made to walk tall. So take your power back. Take your voice back. Take your life back. Because the most dangerous thing you can ever tolerate is forgetting who you are. And now you remember,